Wolves have reignited their interest in Brazilian defender Robert Renan. In this video, we're going to be speaking about him as a profile, where he would play in this Wolves team, and also what I think it could mean for the likes of Totti Gomes as well. So let's get straight into this one. As you can see last night, Brazilian journalist Andre Hernan confirmed that negotiations between Robert Renan and Bahia have stalled after they've agreed an 18-month loan for the player. Now, Wolves have entered the scene again, which makes this extremely interesting, hence the reason we're doing this video. And of course, Vitor Pereira did coach him at Corinthians, as it also says here. But at the moment, the negotiations between that club are frozen. So I do think this is a very opportunistic time for Wolves to get in there, because I would be very excited about the prospect of Robert Renan playing for this Wolves side. As you can see, this is a style of football that Vitor Pereira implemented at Corinthians. Now, he did only play 13 times for Corinthians that season, but ultimately he played in this system, which I think is most important. As you can see here, the back five, which we know Wolves are basically sort of always going to play. And I think to get the best out of certain players, Wolves have to play that. I think Agbadou suits being the centre half in that back five. And I think Totti looks absolutely miles off it when he's actually in a back four. When you put him in that back five as the left-sided centre-back, he looks brilliant. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. As you can see here, imagine this is Andre and Joao Gomez, and this is Arias and Fer Lopez, perhaps the two tens. Of course, you're going to have Larson in and around that area as well. So the fact that sort of, Renan's come in, and it looks like he hopefully will come in for Wolves as well, but he came into Corinthians and has pretty much played Vitor Pereira's system, albeit for only 13 games, but still he would have worked on it every day in training, and generally, that's something that I think takes sort of, is very important to take into account, really, especially when Wolves are signing a new player, linked with a new player. And there is always that worry that a manager's bringing in players from previous clubs and they just aren't to the level. Ten Hag did it at Manchester United with loads of Ajax players. But ultimately, I think if there's one player that could go right to the very top, Robert Renan is absolutely one of them. And he was been linked with Real Madrid and stuff like that in sort of years gone by for a very good reason. Now, this is something I want to discuss with you as well. Now, this is his heat map from his time at Corinthians under Vitor Pereira, and it's so interesting. As you can see here, the dark pink indicates more intensity, the lighter colours indicate less intensity. But as you can see, he's really comfortable operating in those areas. He really is. And like I say, in terms of progressing the ball, he's really comfortable at driving with it as well and getting into these areas, which I think that's something that Wolves always had in that left centre-back position, really. Totti Gomes is massively comfortable on the ball, especially, as I say, in these areas around 35 yards from his own sort of goal, really. And generally, he's really comfortable in those areas, playing it out to the wing-back and also drifting out to the wing-back as well. So in terms of profile, it's really not too dissimilar. I also think his ability to pick up the ball and get into these areas and also make the right decision is key. Now, there's a lot of centre-backs you see that often make the wrong decision in them areas, but I do think for him, he's one of them that's got that confidence. I think he also has that a bit of Brazilian flair about him as well. You often see him do a little nice little turn or a nice ball around the corner, or sometimes he'll pull out a skill, or just generally he's a very comfortable player on the ball and someone that I think would absolutely excel under Vitor Pereira. Not just only as he did at Corinthians, but as he has done really ever since he left Corinthians as well. Now, as you can see here is the amount of games that he has played across all the different clubs that he's been at. Now, in 2022, in the January, halfway through that season with Corinthians, he moved to Zenit St. Petersburg, where he only played 9 games. And then, ultimately, played a few games again the season after. I think he played 5 as well, as you can see there. And then was obviously moved on to Internacional, where he actually firstly got his proper first taste of senior football, really, and got to play at the highest level. Obviously, it's for Brazilian players, I felt like he was always inevitably going to end back up in Brazil, and at that point he was linked with Real Madrid as well. So the fact that he took that leap to go to Internacional to develop his game instead of going to a place where perhaps he wouldn't be a first teamer for a very long time, I think shows a lot of sort of desire from him on a personal level. And then also, of course, he played for Al-Shabaab last season, where he played 35 games. And generally, as you can see here, judging off his SofaScore ratings, which you shouldn't put a ridiculous amount of stock in, but also when you look at the level of consistency, they're in and around that 6.9 to 7 range, which is where you want your centre-backs to be at, really, especially when they're not as involved in play in certain systems as they will be in other ones as well. So I think that's something to definitely look at as well. And again, this is Robert Renan's heat map for Al-Shabaab last season in the Saudi Pro League. And yes, I understand there will be people saying, why is he in the Saudi Pro League? But ultimately, it was a really smart move for him, because he can go over there, show his quality and look really good, whilst also managing to earn a fair bit as well. Now, as you can see here, the season heat map again, he's so comfortable in that sort of just past the halfway line space and generally really comfortable in there, and exactly the same here. Now, he has also played at left back at times throughout last season due to cover and stuff like that, but also generally across his career he's comfortable playing there as well, which again, a similar profile to Totti in that aspect as well. So I do think in terms of his heat map, as you can see here, it's really sort of promising for what I think Vitor Pereira and Wolverhampton Wanderers need in the current moment. Whether he be the depth or Totti will be the depth, I highly doubt Totti will be the depth, as I'm sure he'll be the captain, but this is the sort of, leading to very positive signs for a signing for Wolves and for Vitor Pereira's side, in my opinion. Now, as you can see here by this news article, it confirms that Renan has a £22 million release clause. Now, you might be thinking, ooh, that's a bit steep for a player that's going to come in and be a backup to Totti Gomez, but I don't believe that will be the case whatsoever. And as you can see in this article, they believe it as well. I think in terms of a player that's got absolute bags of potential and could go on to be one of the best defenders in Europe, I don't see why Wolves would buy him with the intention of him not being a starter. Now, that does leave them in an awkward position with the Totti Gomez stuff because it might unsettle him. However, I think competition's healthy at the highest level in the Premier League personally, and I think that's something that probably Vitor Pereira will be looking towards as well. And I do think, in terms of a left-sided centre-back, I think he's probably more consistent than Totti Gomez as well. Totti looks brilliant in certain games, and then some games he can look a bit out of place. I also think with the signing of Wolverhampton, which I have spoken about yesterday, if you want to check that one out, because I think it's an unbelievable deal, I think it allows for Robert Renan to come in and actually have more of a licence of freedom as well, because I do think he covers the channels better than Totti. I do think he steps into midfield and progresses the ball better than Totti as well. So I do think it definitely is healthy competition, and I'd argue he's actually better than Totti when he comes in and gets a run of games. I think he will get up to that speed quite quickly, so that's another thing to consider as well. Now, Robert Renan is an absolutely brilliant profile. As I've said, he's very much a ball-playing defender that wants to be on it. And I do caveat that by saying that, showing the leagues that he has played in. And obviously, he was only on loan during his spell with Vitor Pereira. But still, I do think a lot of them are still important to why Wolves want to sign him and why Vitor Pereira wants to sign him as well. Now, in terms of playing forward passes, progressive passes, key passes as well for left-sided centre-backs as well, he was right up there last season, and he is a really promising talent. And the one thing I did just want to touch on quickly, hence why we are on this screen, is the fact that he has a gleaming injury history as well. As you can see there, he's missed 2 games with a cold, which, make of that what you will. But equally, he's missed 2 games because of a cold. He's not got any Achilles injuries, any ACL injuries, any hamstring injuries, any reoccurring problems, which I think, again, as I said, with Wolverhampton, is absolutely key. 2 signings, by the way, that potentially could come in that have got gleaming injury records, which is definitely something to put stock in my personal opinion as well. One final thing that I think people may be a bit questionable about is Robert Renan's height. Now, in terms of a defender, he's nowhere near the tallest, most physically demanding defender. And he's not one of these players that's particularly strong or anything like that. But he's very technical, as I've said, and on the ball he's absolutely comfortable. Now, in terms of physical stature, we've seen so many good centre-backs come from the Brazilian league and do so well. You think of Marquinhos as well, similarly, at Corinthians, funnily enough, about 10 years ago now. And he was very much a similar profile, a ball-playing defender, a small defender, but also just very intelligent in terms of game IQ. And that's something that I think Robert Renan will bring to this Wolves side in abundance. I also might add that Robert Renan is 186 centimetres tall, so 6'1", and Totti Gomez is 187 centimetres tall, so 6'1" and a bit. So equally, again, I think it's another thing that Vitor Pereira is not particularly concerned about because he hasn't been with Totti Gomez, and Wolves fans haven't been really, because ultimately it's how well he can defend and how good he is on the ball, and that's something that we've seen. So I do think, again, in terms of profile, I think it will massively benefit Wolves next season, and it'll be almost like having a better Totti Gomez or a Totti Gomez with more potential. So absolutely, I think this is a brilliant deal, as I've reiterated numerous times throughout this video. Now, as I've said, I think it's an absolutely brilliant signing if Wolves can get Robert Renan through the door. As I say, there probably will be question marks about the fee given the leagues that he has played in. But equally, I think for a Vitor Pereira system and a player that can adapt to the Premier League and is already as good as he is at 21 years old, I think it makes complete sense personally. Now, I hope you did enjoy this video. If you did, please like the video. It really helps more people see my content. Comment on the video as well. I absolutely love interacting with all of you, and I never leave a comment unreplied to. And also, please subscribe to the channel. As like I say, we are trying to reach 1,500 subscribers before the start of the 2025-26 Premier League season. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.